Good morning, Henry. It's very glad for us, to have you here today. Very pleased. And we're going to ask you a few questions, about yourself and about the Latino Caucus, about the APHA. We want our audience to know a little bit, what this is all about. Can you tell us your full name, what you do, and what's your connection with the Latino Caucus?
Sure. It's been a long time a member of the Latino Caucus. That's my connection. But I started about the third year of its existence in 1975 and have held various positions within the caucus over the years, including president. And it's been it's always been a home to me, just like APHA, where it sits, is in the larger public health arena.
Okay.
But in the APHA itself, the caucus is home.
Great.
So my name, actually, I use Jess Henry Montes on my passport, but generally I go by Henry.
Henry Montes. I think that's how all of us know you. Henry Montes.
Yeah.
Great. For those who don't know, can you tell us? We talk about public health, Latino Caucus, APHA. So, what is public health?
Well, public health is just what it says. It's a focus on the health of the public, and it's done in a way that takes into account prevention as the modality that it uses to serve the public. And so I differentiate it for people from medical treatment or medical care, so people have an understanding of the different aspects of public health that are prevention-oriented, and included in that, obviously, is looking at it from a population health point of view. And so, I think public health is a way of serving the public for improving their health conditions throughout the world, actually, but in the United States for us.
But thank you for sharing that, because I think there's a lot of confusion sometimes in the general public, especially. They don't really see the difference between what's care at a hospital and what is public health.
Right,
so
right.
if I understand you correctly from talking to other people, so public health is more concerned about the community, about the group, and then providing better quality of life for that community.
I think they have to work hand in glove, with the medical care of community as well, because so many of our population have chronic conditions that require attention medically. But a lot of the conditions could have been prevented had lifestyles been a little bit different, eating, exercise, and all that. And also sometimes it's just the environment people are in create a kind of a risk factor for them, So I think that's it's important to have people have that distinction,
between what is
so they go after lifestyle issues, and also I think the public policy issues are influencing people's behavior also. Like the environmental building, or the built environment, as they call it.
But that's very interesting. You said that it's about policy, and I think your experience and your background is related to policy.
Right.
But people don't really think about policy and health. They don't see the connection. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, it's been my pleasure, honor, however you want to position it, as working for the federal government for about 40 years, and in that time working on ways of developing more permanent ideas that are going to help the public in their health status. And so policy is about developing a way of maintaining good practices or best practices. And so policies put into place something that's sustainable. And then a variety of programs are developed around those policies, so that they have action items.
So it sounds like public health is really an extensive field. But tell me about the your role in the Latino Caucus and
Okay.
about what is the Latino Caucus? What does the Latino Caucus does regarding public health?
Yeah, well, the Latino Caucus started back in 1973 because the APHA at the time was pretty much ignoring the Latino health issues. And so what they did is they invited Cesar Chavez to make a presentation, and
Interesting.
they were going to relegate him to a regular session rather than the general session. And so all the Latinos that were there, and at that time we weren't very many, protested.
Oh.
And so Cesar never spoke, and he didn't come because he felt insulted. I mean, when the people that knew the situation talked with him and so
Right.
on. So what happened was that the executive board, which is the operating board for the organization of APHA, decided to apologize and then to excuse me, to provide a general session for him and for pharmacists the next year, and in '74.
Wow.
And so he couldn't make it for I don't know why, but at that time he was tied up in a lot of things. Anyway, so he sent Dolores Huerta. So Dolores Huerta spoke for the farmworkers then, and so that grouping started the caucus in '73.
Wow.
Okay, but it was known as the Chicano Latino
Chicano Latino
Caucus
Caucus.
because
Ah,
that was
interesting.
at the time that was the word used. Chicano was the word for Southern California's Latinos, and so anyway, so they dropped the word Chicano. Actually, by the time I started in the third year, it just became the Latino Caucus.
It just kind of grouped the rest of the Latinos that were part of the
Right,
the,
and then we recruited
American Public
people.
Health
And
Association.
so I started in '75, and then they made me secretary.
Oh.
So we always tried to get people right away involved. So that's
Amazing.
That's how I
Wow.
started out with it.
Well, there's some of the things I actually didn't know, so I'm glad I'm learning a little bit more. So from the beginning of the Latino Caucus, where the Latino Caucus is now on the future, what do you think is the future for the Latino Caucus?
Well, I see its future being forgive the expression, but the attention getter for Latino health issues, okay? And public health, for all its progressiveness, has a hard time really involving the Latino professionals and the community in the discourse that goes on about public health. And I'm not sure why that is exactly, but it's been my experience over the years in various forums, in various venues to try to, make that point, and so that the quote unquote mainstream becomes more self-conscious about that. Yeah.
Wow. And I know we're talking about the Latino Caucus, we're talking about the Latino community, but for those people who are listening to us, how different is the Latino community from the other communities in the U.S.?
Well, culturally, it's different, and we have a United States that's multicultural. So, culture is not its defining interest, but it's its natural habitat. Like for Latinos, that's where Latinos reside in their culture. But the real distinguishing characteristic for me is that they are a linguistic population, that language means a lot to the population.
Right.
And that really needs to be addressed,
Right.
And I think also that there are certain characteristics of the population, like loyalty, closeness to family, being more honest about, what they're feeling, more about their feelings. And so it's a population that you need to be aware of those
Right.
characteristics to deal with, and building trust. The larger community, the larger community needs to understand where those trust, pressure points are, so that they can deal with them.
So it's really a unique community in many ways.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And for those who are listening to our conversation, what would you like them to take away from this, from this conversation?
Well, one of the things is just how important our population is. The demographics of the population. Where I live is in a county of 1 million people, and 20% are Latinos. But that's not the real issue. The real issue is that 30 to 35% of the elementary school children are Latino.
Wow.
And 30% of the high school kids are Latino. And so, they're our future. And they're our future for the county, they're our future for the United States, because the United States, I think in 2050, will be majority minority, and the majority of the minorities will be Latinos, okay? It's going to be roughly 30% of the population of the United States. So I think people need to understand that as to the importance of the population to the overall welfare of the United States,
Right. So there's actually something that cannot be ignored by
Absolutely,
anybody.
absolutely. In fact, they should be worked with and cultivated for those leadership positions and so on. Yeah.
Great. Well, Henry, thank you so much for your time.
Well, you're
for
very
sharing
welcome.
your knowledge and for your passion for the Latino community. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Pietro. It's always a pleasure.
Okay.